All right, so Google just dropped something that's, well, it's a really big deal for how AI agents are going to work inside big companies. They're contributing a new gRPC transport for MCP, which is the protocol for connecting AI agents to tools. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but stick with me because it solves a very real, very frustrating problem that's been holding back enterprise AI for a while.
You see, for an AI agent to be useful, to actually do stuff, it can't just be stuck in its own head. It needs to reach out and interact with the real world through tools and APIs. We're talking about booking a flight, checking a database, or, posting a message to Slack. The agent needs a way to talk to all those different services.
And that's where we hit the real problem, a massive communication gap. The way AI agents were originally designed to talk just didn't line up with the language that corporate IT infrastructure has been speaking for years. It created this huge, awkward roadblock. Okay, so let's dig into what that roadblock actually was. To really get why this Google announcement is such a game changer, we first have to understand the messy problem that a protocol called MCP was created to solve in the first place. So let's ask the basic question. Before we had a standard like MCMP, how did an AI agent even connect to a tool? Like, what did that look like? Well, the short answer is, it was painful. Really painful. Okay, let's say you wanted your agent to use Slack. You literally had to build a piece of custom one-off code that knew exactly how to translate the agent's intention into a perfectly formatted call just for the Slack API. So that's one agent, one tool, and one totally custom integration. And then what happens when you want to add another tool? Say GitHub. Yep, you guessed it. You had to write a completely different piece of custom code because the GitHub API has its own rules, its own format. Every single new tool meant starting over from scratch. It was a chaotic, unscalable mess. And this is exactly where MCP comes in. MCP, which stands for the Model Controller Protocol, was basically the hero we needed for this chaos. Instead of building endless custom connectors, MCP creates a universal standard. All the tools agree to speak MCP, and the AI agent only needs to learn that one language. It's the universal translator we were all waiting for. But of course, there's a twist in the story. Just when MCP solved one huge problem, the way it was built, its default technical choices, created a brand new, kinda subtle conflict, especially inside big companies. It's really a tale of two very different communication protocols. So to get how MCP communicates, think of it like sending a letter in the mail, right? You've got two parts. The letter itself, that's the message, and then you've got the postal service that actually delivers it, the content and the delivery system. Okay, let's break that down. At the top, you have the core MCP logic. That's the idea of what's being communicated. The letter itself is written in something called JSON-RPC. It's a format that's really common on the web, pretty easy for humans to read. And the delivery, well, that's just handled by standard HTTP. It's all very clean, very simple, and very web native. And here is where we get the big standoff. See, MCP is using all these web-friendly defaults. But thousands of companies, we're talking Spotify, Netflix, Google, they've been running their internal systems on a totally different standard for years, gRPC. Its message format, protobuf, is machine-optimized and lightning fast. Its contracts are super strict and reliable. It's built for high-performance systems. So when MCP walks in the door and says, hey, talk to me in JSON over HTTP, you can see the problem. It's a total mismatch. And that brings us to the solution. The big announcement from Google. They stepped in and built a bridge to solve this whole protocol standoff, and they call it the gRPC transport. Now, the really brilliant part here is that this isn't some massive rewrite of MCP. The fix is what's called a pluggable transport. That means the core logic, the brain of MCP, stays exactly the same. All you're doing is swapping out the delivery truck. To go back to our analogy, you're keeping the same letter, but you're switching from the regular postal service to a super high-speed courier. So here's what the original stack looked like. You see those three layers we talked about, right? The MCP logic up top, which remember doesn't change, then the JSON messages, and the HTTP transport. This is the web native defaults. Okay, now look at the new stack with gRPC. See, the top layer, MCP's core logic, is totally untouched, but the bottom two layers, they've been swapped out for their enterprise-grade equivalents. The human-readable JSON is gone, replaced by super compact machine-optimized protocol buffers, and HTTP is replaced by the high-performance gRPC. All of a sudden, the MCP server is speaking the native language of the enterprise. Okay, so we get what the change is. But the real question is, so what? Why does this actually matter so much? This is where it gets really interesting, where we see the tangible impact for developers and companies out there. This is where the rubber meets the road. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't just theory. A senior staff engineer over at Spotify, a company that was already playing around with this, said it perfectly. They get developer familiarity, less work, and more reliable typed APIs. That's real-world validation from a huge tech company. So this really spells out the immediate wins, right? An MCP server using gRPC isn't some weird outsider anymore. It plugs right into a company's existing monitoring and networking tools. It means you don't have to translate between protocols or maintain extra overhead, and you get those strict, reliable API contracts that are just essential for production systems. It just fits. But it's not all sunshine and roses. This isn't some magic bullet. To get the whole picture, we need to add a little nuance here and look at the bigger strategic questions this whole thing brings up. First up, let's talk performance. Yeah, gRPC is faster, for sure. But here's the reality check. For most AI agent workflows, the thing that takes up almost all the time, we're talking like 99% of it, is the large language model thinking. The transport part, that's just a tiny sliver. So that performance boost really only makes a huge difference at massive, massive scale, with hundreds of agents making thousands of requests every second. And here's an even deeper, more important point. gRPC is great at telling an application the structure of an API call. The method name, the data types, that kind of thing. But an LLM needs more than that. It needs meaning. It needs to understand what a tool actually does and when it should use it. And that's the special sauce that MCP provides. You absolutely still need that semantic layer on top of gRPC. The delivery truck changed, but what's in the letter and why you're sending it, that requirement hasn't gone anywhere. So this all brings us to one final big question. MCP started out as this new AI-native protocol, right? But now it's learning to speak the language of older enterprise systems, basically because that's where the customers are. So is this a brilliant pragmatic move that just tore down the biggest barrier to getting this tech adopted? Or is it a compromise? Is it the new world having to bend to the old? The truth is, it's probably a little bit of both. And figuring out that balance is really going to shape the future of AI in the enterprise.
Thank you. Share and subscribe to Learn AI for more AI insights.